Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Special guest today is Shanna Vavra in Colorado. Now, she wears a lot of hats. She's a host of Sense of the Soul. There's over 350 episodes, top ranked, top 1%, but also top 25 spiritual show in 2020, 2025. She's had a whole panoply of guests across every topic imaginable by now. It's a lot of fun. You need to check out this show, subscribe. I'm going to also mention some other parts of her background, and I want to make sure we mention the part that says author. We're going to get to that in just a second, but she's an intuitive, a Reiki Master, and also a teacher of Reiki, spiritual journey coach, and she's all about helping you find your spark, the divine spark within. She's also about tying up all the loose ends. If it's the past, the present, the future, how do you let go of what you need to let go of to be more present so you can get going on your journey? So think of her as one of those folks who will even just fire up your engine and get you pointed in the right direction and get you going. Now, as author, I've got to mention this, Desperately Seeking Sophia, Allegories of the Divine Feminine. Now, consider her, and this is going to make her laugh, a historian of the old days, whether we talk Gnostic, Sophia, Divine Feminine, stuff like that. She's going to tell us about that later. She's been doing tons of research. That book is yet to come out, but is in the works. It will be coming out soon. And so I want to welcome Shanna to the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so fun to be here.
Yes, well, we're super excited to have you on. And again, with your experience, your insight, and everything you've seen and done, why don't we start with something that's sort of off to the side a little bit? Instead of your background just yet, why don't we talk the universe? How big is it? How big is the universe? How big is it when it comes to angels? This is impossible for us to grasp, and yet you've been having experiences for how long now? Take us somewhere with respect to, we know what we know at a societal level, and then there's actually what really happens in the universe. So take us somewhere with your experiences. Talk to us about what you've seen, felt, done in the past.
Well, Michael, I have to say that Archangel Michael, or really Saint Michael, was one of the first angels that I prayed to as a child. I would say besides, Jesus. I grew up Christian. And my brother and my dad were both named Michael, and they used to get money every St. Michael's Day. And I was like, when's St. Shanna Day? What is this? And so he was always taught to me as the protection, right? So an angel of protection. He has the big sword slaying the dragon or the demon, however he's pictured. And I was taught literally in the night. I would be so scared. I remember, living with the covers over my head, not being able to breathe, super hot, but just afraid. And then calling on Archangel Michael for protection. That was always my go-to. And then, that kind of stuck with me through the years. I even taught Sunday school. And I grew, my kids were going to be Catholic, or well, not necessarily Catholic. I grew up Catholic, but my kids were going to be Christian before they were even born. This was something that I had decided their religion. Now looking back, that's so unfair. But I did also instill some of that, asking for protection, from a higher source, from an angel, whatever you want to call them. And my dad actually passed away, almost 7 years ago. May is a creepy month for me. I'm over it now, but so many important people have passed in this month. I used to dread it. And it's my birthday month, and it's Mother's Day. So I'm like, wait a minute, I need to not hate this month. So my dad passed away, and it was interesting. My little girl was 4 years old. And she had already seen me grieve several people prior. This child's first 4 years were literally watching me grieve. So she just didn't know anything different. So much that she would come up to me and she said one time, I'm going to miss you when you leave. Like, she just thought we were all dropping like flies. And so one day we're in my dad was a sports equipment store owner. He had a business for, it was like 40 some years here locally. He supplied like all of the youth sports, all of the schools, the officials, and I always worked for him. And he also loved Coors beer. I don't know if you're familiar with Coors, but we're from Louisiana. He's from St. Louis originally, but they don't really have like Coors so much out there like they do here in Colorado, which is where it's brewed. So Coors, I'm in Colorado, and my dad loved the Rocky Mountains, and but one day we were at his office, and I was clearing it out after he passed away, and my daughter looks up at me, and she's 4, and she says, "Mommy, he'll always be with you, always." She just had this knowing, that he was not going to go anywhere. And maybe this is because she had experienced me grieving so much that maybe she overheard that. But not even like a month later, another person died in our family. It was her great grandma. And we're laying in bed, and she says, "You know what? I have an angel now too." And she's like, and she visits me in my dream. And what's interesting is I had had so many visitations from my loved ones that I had lost over the years. And I hadn't ever like really thought of them as visitations. But then all of a sudden I started to recall them because I've always wrote down my dreams, especially the really vivid ones. And there was so much knowledge in them. In fact, there was one that was super scary. It was my dad. We were at Thanksgiving dinner, and the whole family was there, and he just like drops dead, like in front of everyone. I'm like, what is this dream? Well, I had been carrying around that I felt guilty for bringing him to the hospital. So literally through my dream, I looked back and saw, oh my goodness, like he would have maybe have just died like in front of all of us. It was very traumatizing. And so there was other dreams too that I recalled, that I had visitation from one of my best friends who I believe, she just died 9 years, I think it was 9 years ago in a few days is the anniversary. And she was my just dearest friend since like 12. We were best friends. It was horrible. When she died, she had just had twins, and she had a 3-year-old and a 19-year-old. But she had visited me in my dreams as well. And she was like so excited about it. She's like, look at this, like I can visit people in their dreams. And I never remembered any of this until it was like my child, right? Who brought it to my attention that, yeah, I'm getting visited too by angels in my dream.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about you've always had some skills, but when did you first really allow for it, get out of your own way? Because that's what we all do, is we block for as long as possible for a lot of us. And we don't dust off or take the sheets or the cover off the car, the sports car for you. Talk to us a little bit about your skills. Talk to us then, when you did start to own those skills, how has it morphed over time or transformed into helping others? Because, the beginning part is, how long does it take to get comfortable? For some of us, it's decades, or we're like, hey, not this lifetime. Catch me next time.
Right. And I think that we all have that choice. So where was my crossing roads? I would say that, I grew up very empathetic. I was a crybaby, soaking everyone's, emotions and their problems and wanting them, like trying to help everybody, right? I wanted to save the world. Even as a child, I just always wanted to help people. And then that turned into pain over time because I was also taking on their pain. In fact, I became a massage therapist after my dad died because I didn't want to continue his sports equipment business. And I realized, someone would come in for like a hurt right ankle, and all of a sudden I'm leaving, my ankle hurts on the right side, or they have a headache, and now I have a headache. And I started to take on literally the physical pain. And so it was the physical pain that actually kind of triggered me to think, how much have I been taking of people's? And I realized, oh my gosh, I've been taking the emotions of others forever, probably as long as I had remembered. and sitting with myself thinking, you know what, a lot of, my anxiety or my pain or, anything that was going on in my head, which was a whole lot, was not even mine. It was not mine. It was my children's, my partner's, my mom's, my dad's, my brother's, my friends, everyone's. And then if I was able to take all of that away, there was very little here inside of me. I mean, there was nothing. And the only thing that I could hear there was, what are you doing? You should be doing something else. Why are you even, just sitting here listening? This is stupid. You should be doing the dishes. You could be helping your kids. I was so mean to myself. You're not good enough. I just started listening. And I guess I didn't even realize that I had this voice, which is really crazy now to think, because I guess I just had ignored it for so long. And the more quiet I became and the more still I became, the more things opened up. The less I shed all of everybody else's stuff. I made more space for myself. And really it started, I remember that early on in the journey, I had this phantom smell. And it was so odd. In fact, I went to the doctor. I made them do like a nasal cavity CAT scan and all these things, x-rays, and they could find nothing. And actually, my doctor is amazing. She's still my doctor, and we actually are both clients of each other's now. But she said, you're doing a lot of meditation lately. I think you might be smelling energy. I'm like, energy? You can smell it? Like gas energy? Like, I didn't even get it. But I would bring people to this specific smell and they're like, I can't smell it. I mean, I literally thought, if you look that up, you might even find that it's like a form of schizophrenia. I was so like, what is going on with me? So it went away. And, every once in a while I could smell it in the wind. So it's very interesting. This smell that came for probably almost a year. I mean, it would be in the car with me. It would be at work. It would be in the grocery store. And so then that's when I kind of started noticing that it's nothing in the house. I mean, I even thought maybe it was like a mouse dead or something. I was trying so hard to figure it out. So from there, literally, I was on a lot of medication because of all the stress and the grief that I was going through. And I decided to get off of it. And then I was really raw, real raw. And I understood for the first time that I was more than a meat suit.
Yep.
And the more I paid attention to that voice, and the more I paid attention to the pain that I no longer had the medication to numb. I know, because I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, with pain, and then I was diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety. I had a bag full of meds. I got off all of them.
And
but
the voice you were hearing, was it your higher self? How do you describe it? Your soul, your group of cheerleading angels, everybody?
Well, no, I would say that it was probably just my higher self at that point.
Okay.
Yes. But what was interesting, I started to meditate in the morning. And that became kind of a habit, which was really nice. And then afterwards, I would write. And I would write and write. I mean, I'd be at the grocery store writing. I'd be at work, like before my client, like, oh my God, I just need to get this out. It was like I was projectile vomiting these words, and it was good stuff. And I was like, this doesn't even sound like me. Maybe it is me. I don't know. But I had just would write. I mean, I had a book probably. I could have turned all that into a book for sure. And I would only share with my co-host Mandy at the time, and she'd be like, wow, that's good. And a lot of it, coincidentally, she's like, they say that in the book of AA, like the big book. And so it was really funny because I was like, that must be a good book then.
I hear it's super spiritual.
Yeah,
all the steps of letting go, trusting the flows in life, trusting a higher vibration that gets you out of my situation is.
Right. Yeah. And I did end up at one point joining Al-Anon. So I did become familiar with the AA book. And do you know that even Carl Jung had a hand in that book, working with Bill and Bob, which I found around every single corner, because I started to have all of these synchronicities. So it really started to unfold. It was almost like the more I shed this old version of myself, the more I became open to all new possibilities and probabilities. And this really came with this question that I asked myself back then. How much of what I believed in had I been taught to believe in? And of that, how much had I actually experienced to be true?
Mhm.
And I was screwed. I mean, everything that I was living, everything I had taught, taught my children to be, everything that I believed in as in like religion, was all just, this is what you're supposed to believe. This is who you're supposed to be. This is the little cookie cutter house you're supposed to live in, and the car you should drive, and the perfect little kids. And none of that truly was authentic. None of it. And so I just started my quest into, wanting to experience everything. And so with that, I wanted to look more into energy. So I took Reiki classes, and Reiki was such an amazing platform. It's why I teach it, because I just want people to have a better understanding that they are energy, and, they're not just a meat suit. There was this one morning, and I still was kind of like up in the air. I still had like the other voice, right? That sometimes was loud, saying, you better be careful what you're getting yourself into. This is some dark stuff. And then my other voice would say, but it feels so good, but I feel good. Like I'd argue with my ego. So my mom was going to watch my daughter that morning, or actually that afternoon. The class was at noon, and I think it was the master class. And she calls me at 7:22. I'm like, Mom, it's a Saturday. I didn't even say that. All I said was, it's 7:22. She's like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. What time's the class? I said, noon. So my dog heard me awake, so wanted me to bring him downstairs. So I let him out and I lay on the couch. And my partner was already up on a Saturday morning that early. I have no idea why, but he was watching the news. And all of a sudden, a commercial comes on as I'm laying there. And it repetitively it says over and over, it's 7:22, it's 7:22, it's 7:22. It says it like 20, 30 times. That's all it says. And then I'm like, wait a minute, rewind this. Now you can rewind, commercials. So I actually recorded it, because I'm like, nobody's going to believe this. So yeah, it was a McDonald's commercial. And that's all it said was 7:22. It made no sense. In fact, I can't even find the commercial anymore. Thank God I took a video of it. I still have the video. But I was starting to see that numbers were guiding me. So this became something new in my awareness as I became more present with everything around me. 22 was coming up a lot. And 7 actually is my life path number. So I'm not mathematical, I'm mathemagical. And so I can follow numbers like this, and they make sense to me. So 7 being the spiritual number, 22 is the master builder. It was like I was being spiritually led to build something, new for myself. That's how I received it. And so, yeah, that was amazing.
I love it. I was at a Boston Marathon. I'm gonna have to guess the year, like
Yeah.
2010, 2011, something like that. But I was flying out to Boston from Austin, Texas, and I was under the weather, so I wasn't expecting much. Runners can really beat themselves up. You're 5 seconds too slow on the 5K that you ran just a month ago, and you beat yourself up over 5 seconds. So I go out to this race, and I'm like, I'm really under the weather, so I don't know if I can even get to the halfway point, let alone finish. And at the halfway point, I'm running a great pace, but I'm like, I'm not going to finish. Like I can feel my body starting to fall apart because of the cold or the flu, whatever I've got. And so I pull out, and I'm cool with it, which is a unique thing. Again, runners can be pretty demanding. And I remember getting on the JetBlue plane to return back to Austin, really relaxed, as if I had run the best time ever. I'm just content. And I started to see auras on every other person. And that was fine. That was a new experience. And I was, not freaked out, but I was wondering, well, why am I not seeing it on the other people? I love that you can ask every question except, what you're actually supposed to learn from the moment. And then when I got off the plane for 3 weeks, I was having ear pressure like I'm up at 30,000 feet. And it once in a while would come and go, but it would be pretty steady. And again, it was another thing. If you want me to attribute importance to it or a reason, it was really to get me to pay attention that, hey, there's more going on around you than you're ever going to allow for normally when you're up here. But so of course I go to see an ear, nose, throat guy to check my hearing. And let me just think, he's the uncle of a really good runner downtown Austin. And so he ends up taking time out of his day to draw me The Notebook, if you remember the ending, and that hospital. And he drew me a thing about his parents. They're both like comatose or Alzheimer's, but the mom's passing and the dad wakes up from not knowing who he is, where he is at, to go down a maze in this facility in the middle of the night to hold her hand somehow while she passed away, and then went back to his place, back to being a vegetable. This is a doctor taking time out, 40 extra minutes to draw me a map, because I checked out just fine. And it had gone away while I was in the place. The second I got into my car and I left the facility, it came right back. So I'm sitting looking at his doctor's office, got back in the car, and I started laughing because I was like, okay, clearly it's not what we thought it was, And this guy ends up being a long time connection for me. I love this doctor, but I had to mention it because there's ways the universe steps in to help you orient. Maybe calm down. A lot of times we freak out instead a lot and for a long time. So you had a lot of stuff happening. How long did it take you to acclimate, or were you pretty fast on the uptake? Like, I'm slow on the uptake. 2 years for me to accept something that I know you would do in 2 hours or 2 minutes. How'd you do on the uptake? When did you start to take a breath on it all and go, okay, what's next? Give me another one. I need another sign.
Well, Michael, I had to shed so many conditions. That was really my hang up. All of the signs were coming in like slapping me in the face. They were very obvious, but yet, I still had that loud voice, and I didn't know really how to shut it up. All I know is that the more I became more present with my higher self, right, with my soul, really is when I think that the light just got so much bigger that my ego just hardly had any space in there. But I can just imagine, I'm very visual, so I imagine like my little ego like going, this thing is like taking over. It was like I was blowing a bubble, like big old bubble yum gum, and of my higher self is just expanding. And it's interesting because that voice is still there, right? Even now, I hear it sometimes and I just tell it to shut up. I love how people will actually call it a name. I've heard one person say it was her drunk best friend. I like that one.
I like that.
I know. But I do have to say that there was a point where I feel like we had to make peace together too. It was like, okay, I get that you have to be here. I get that I'm human. I get that this is an experience and that you actually have a lot to do with this human life. So can you help me write a book? Which, yes, that's what your ego is, a great example. Like, I need schedule. I need that, kind of encouragement to be more driven, right? That ego is going to push me to do that. Because otherwise, I probably am good with, just sharing it with the people that I need. But I knew that there was with the things that I've experienced over my journey, I feel like my purpose became that I needed to find my voice and share it with people. That's definitely part of my journey. And that actually stems from like my ancestry, like understanding where those French Creole women came from, and actually just even discovering that I was French Creole, because that was a shock in its own. However, a lot of people don't know their story. They're kind of a forgotten people. And so once I met them, and they lined up for miles. It was just like one came in, and as soon as I thought it was over, a whole bunch of other ones would come in, and they just wanted their stories to be told or heard. And then I told them. And, actually it coincidentally, I don't know if it's a coincidence or maybe a synchronicity, but all this kind of happened around Black Lives Matters, like when all the protests were going on, George Floyd. And
Mhm.
so that was very interesting because as a white woman, obviously I'm white, but yet, I mean, I do have a quarter African American in me that I didn't know existed. And so learning why was it that my great grandma denied her culture, her race, even her name.
Hmm.
I had to go down that road. I mean, I needed to know, and I didn't know how. I didn't care how the knowing came. I needed to know. I became like this just hardcore seeker of the truth, and then finding the voice to express the truth with everything.
And for the Cajun Creole, French Creole background, isn't there a shaman in the lineage or the ancestry as well? So that there's, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know, when I first discovered him, I was so just devastated by his story because he was known as the apostate, which means that he converted to Christianity. Well, in reading his story, because there's actually a lot on him, the Jesuits wrote a lot about him. I mean, journals on him in the 1600s. He was known as a tent shaker, a sorcerer. I mean, so many amazing stories about him. But they gave him a American Christian name. Well, not wouldn't have been American because he was up in Canada. But so they gave him a Christian name, and they would guarantee that this little tribe would be safe, you know, as the British would maybe attack them or war might, happen in their area. That conversion actually got them safety.
Hmm.
However, when the Jesuits would revisit this little community, he was still doing his tent shaking. This is what they wrote. And then all of a sudden, like when he's around 50 years old, there's no more information about him, like nothing. It just stops. And so you wonder how he passed. There's really no information. And I really wish that I knew. But I really wanted to kind of like connect with him spiritually. You know, I thought maybe I'll ask him. So I went to this medium. It was like a 2-hour session. She was also a shaman. And she knew about, I didn't tell her anything about my ancestor, and she knew he was there. And she was like, you need to journey to meet him. You need to go through the same way that he did it, though. So he did it through drum journeys, or you need to figure out whatever practice he was using, and then you need to do that. So I was like, I had no idea what this lady's talking to. And now my ego's going, is she nuts? Like, what? She wants you to go and take shaman classes. Like, what? But I just kept leaning into it. So I did. And my very first drum journey, it was so amazing. So everyone's in this class, and there's like 20 some people, and they're all told to find their spirit animal. And Michael, I'm not going to find my spirit animal, right? I want to find my shaman. So we get there in the journey into the my space, and there's a hawk, and I'm like, no, I don't want a hawk, I want my ancestor. But I'm following this hawk into this very dense, dark place, which in meditation I'd always seen like bright, vibrant colors, and this was different. This was very dense and dark and very earthly. So here I am, and there's this opening, and all of a sudden, this wolf comes out. And here again, I mean, my ego's popping in going, you got to be kidding me. I mean, I want my shaman, not all of these animals. And I'm not here for the zoo. And so the wolf comes out and stands and becomes the man.
Hmm.
And I knew it was him. And then all of a sudden, the teacher starts doing the comeback beats. And I'm like, no, I just finally found him. No, I got to go back. Yeah, but that was so cool.
Can we say his name another way?
Yes.
He had a longer name, and also was it Saskatchewan or British Columbia, or another territory?
Yeah, he is. He was from the what is it called? Well, his name was Etienne Pigaroche.
There we go. And he is in a lot of history books and so on. This is a well-known
Yeah.
figure.
Yeah. Yes,
I was
his
looking for the
dad was
drawing.
Reiki.
Yeah, I was looking for the horse drawing. He's on a horse and maybe holding
Yes.
a spear or a
Yeah.
cultural pole. I forgot the name of it. But
Yeah.
the point of this is very fascinating story. And so that was your first introduction, kind of the other side connecting, during that ceremony.
It was so cool. It was so cool. And he literally stayed with me during my Reiki journey. He stayed with me. I always felt his presence. I started to really incorporate some of the indigenous, like the shaker and the drum, and using a lot of the medicine and that he did, and that became part of my practice, even with Reiki, and even the way that I teach it still today. And it was interesting. One time I had a paranormal investigation here at my house because my house is so active. I mean, stuff's moving around all the time. And she had a voice box, and you could hear, I can't remember exactly how it went, but he was actually there and he was responding intelligently, and it was incredible. Yep, there he is. So his father was a great chief too. Yep, there he is. Ectomine Pigaroche. I mean, I think that's how you say it. It's interesting. So this story is so sad, but I did a lot of research on my ancestry, and I found out his sister was actually known to be like the first marriage between like an indigenous with with someone from France, with a French. So, and he talked the chief into taking his daughter to France for an education. And this is the story you'll read. This is something that, is well known because
Yeah.
it was like the first union of, them mixing. And I end up finding out though, like, God, just this past year, I think it was, no, last year, that I found her slave records. She then was sold later on. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I mean, so there you go. It's like the story, it almost looks like so amazing that, he was bringing her to France. This French, he's not the one that was going to marry her. He was just someone who, like a Jesuit or a friend of the Jesuits or military, I don't know. But and maybe he was a Jesuit. He said he was going to take her to France to get her an education, to help her find someone to marry, to have a better life. And then, years later, there's a slave record.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow.
You know, our history is terrible. I've done probably 100 or more people's trees because this became something that I wanted to help other people do. And it's one of the reasons why I've learned so much about history. And it's just, you have to honor, what they went through. Some of it's really bad. It's ugly. But I think that in the end, what I was left with was the strength of very, very resilient people. And that's from all, cultures and traditions, countries.
Cool. Okay. So now back to your healing practice. How did everything transition from, and you're still experiencing stuff this whole time, but
Mhm.
when did you hang out a shingle and, it was Reiki, but when did it morph into other stuff? Because I mean, it was physical therapy, I think at one point, Reiki. Talk to us just about the transition from point to point to
Yeah.
point.
Well, when after my dad died, I was going through some of his things, and I found this little note that he wrote. And he said, find something that you love and become an expert at it.
Hmm.
It was just it was probably like 40 years old. It was in his old stuff. And so I really liked Reiki, and I started to notice that it was more of a it was more healing to my clients than rubbing their stress. I could tell you that much. Like you rub someone's stress, tell them to do some exercises, they come back and they have the same. And I'm like, do some Reiki, and now I help them to bring attention to their own energetic body, their own pain, give them back their power, or maybe power that they never even knew existed. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh my God, that pain went away forever. And so I saw the power in this energy healing. And so I really, really wanted to become an expert in the chakras and understand that system. And I did. And when I started to realize how we were very much energy, I mean, we're barely physical. I mean, I'm surprised I can see you. However, I can see you because of energy as well. I mean, everything is energy.
I saw a show the other day that said something like 99% of us
Yeah.
is when you go down to the cellular or atomic level, there's more space and there's more non-material. I don't know what the other proper terminology is, but the other part of the atom, it's literally like 90 to 98, 99% were not matter. It's the other. So tons of quantum physics, tons of science would back you up on that all the way. Hey, I did want to ask, Reiki is a very interesting area. I always describe it as it's way beyond anything I can categorize, but it's like 25 different buckets or categories of the way people approach Reiki, because some absolutely categorically do not want to see the energy with their eyes. They feel it. Some have to feel it and see it with their eyes shut. So some people just feel it and do it. Others see it with their eyes shut, but they absolutely won't see it with their eyes open. Others see it with their eyes open, but it's ironic only in this sense. If I help a person see auras or the flow of consciousness around them, in them, on their dog, their sister, and they can see the flow between them. If it's somebody with a Reiki background, they're the ones that I'm like, I end up having to spend 45 minutes with some of them. Some of them are like that. Just like if I knocked somebody over the head in Chicago and shook them and said, hey, do you want to see an aura? Half the folks out there are like, yeah, the Force from Star Wars, sure, and they get it done. So with a Reiki person, some of them really have a wiring so that they've told themselves they're not going to see it physically and they feel it. Where did you fall in the whole? You sound like you really like auras, chakras, colors, the flows of life. Were you seeing it before they even walked in the door? Were you seeing it with your eyes closed before they walked in the door? Were you seeing it flowing off your hands? I mean, there's literally 100 different scenarios. Where were you on the whole scale of seeing or feeling colors?
So I would definitely say that I'm clairvoyant. That's for sure. I mean, most of my information comes from visions, my dreams, or actual physical stuff. Or, it's a kind of, I was just talking about this with someone yesterday. It's almost like if you're thinking of a memory, right? And you're thinking about where you were, you're thinking about what the person looks like. It's that kind of seeing the inner seeing to me, or like imagination, or if you're thinking about a movie or watching a movie, even sometimes. So definitely for me, it is visual. I would love to hear things, but then I might be a little scared to hear things, to be honest with you. But I also feel it. I'm also very sensory aware. So I think that clairsensious is another one of mine, kind of like I'm an extreme empath. So like I was saying, when I was taking people's pain, now that I can use now that I'm aware of what's happening, I know how to protect myself when I need to put that up, when to put it down, and also when to allow that pain in, and when to, just to feel sense what's happening to them, and then, to not take it, fully onto myself. So it became like this. It really, truly, the more you hang out with the energy, the more you understand how you're going to do it, and so it's a really hard thing to teach because everyone is so different. I think that's beautiful, how different we are in every way, whether it's gender, color, the way we learn, and the way we receive energy and experience energy. And so it's very unique to every single person. I just heard something so unique. It was yesterday, and this is why I was talking about this with a friend, and she'll be listening to this most likely. But that only 50% of people actually even can hear the conversations that I was talking about with my ego and my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Like 50%. Isn't that interesting? And so I did look it up, and there was like a study, it was like 30 to 50%. But then I was, it's funny because for someone who's very visual and, has been experiencing that for so long, I almost felt like, oh, well, maybe I could help that other 50%, get there, because I do believe that it's all in us. Because if you would have looked at me prior to ever hearing that voice before, I'd never heard it before.
It's
Do you
sort
see
of
what I'm
just the
saying?
narration that goes in your head. Like I can think
Yeah.
of the 90s, the 80s, my time in New York City for 18 years or 20 years. it's just you don't think about it, and yet it's your thinking, and you just
No.
identify with your thinking, but you're not your thoughts in one sense, but everything's duality here. So you are your thoughts, because in a sense, wherever you put your focus is where you put your energy, or it's where you put your focus, that's where you're going. So if the more aware you can be, the more separation from what isn't you. It's just an observation, a snapshot, and we don't have to get too negative about it. But I mean, ego isn't going away, but it can take a
Yeah.
back seat in your vehicle and let your heart do the driving a little more. I did want to ask, and I'm going to back up and explain who you are for people just tuning in. So I'm going to do that in a second, but I'll tell you what we're going to get to next is setting boundaries. It did come up on like episode 5 of this year's show series for Angels, Positivity, and Love. Somebody talked about being over empathetic, and oh my God, what a great story that was. But talk to us about how people can take steps daily to minimize taking on other people's energies. And we're talking the heavier energies or the more dense. How can they stay lighter and their natural, authentic inner self? And we're going to get to that in a second, because right now we're having on as a guest Shanna Vavra, who you can see Sense of Soul podcast behind her. And it's a highly ranked top 1%, top 25 to be watched spiritual show in 2020, 2021. Almost 1 million downloads. So we've got to do a little shout out on the 350 or so episodes she's done. She did have a partner in crime co-host, but now it's her show solo. And I just wanted to also mention, you want to check out her show. You want to subscribe. She's had a ton of guests across a ton of topics and sort of areas of expertise. She was kind enough to have me on in the last year, and I want to say thank you for that as well. But okay, we're all energetic beings, and some of us are way over the top. We don't understand how it's directly impacting our weight, our health, our stress levels, why we can't settle down when we walked out of a really hard work day, or just walking through a supermarket if you're super sensitive, or a crowd of people at a mall, concert. For me, just sending an email to someone generated tobacco smoke in my kitchen, which was the first. That was like 2 months ago. They were having a hard week. They're a super person, super energetic, but I'm just saying it's more energy than we could ever even imagine, these transactions. So how do you keep it real? But what's some of your best advice you tell folks to tone it down, slow it down, take a breath, get out to nature, cup of tea? What do you recommend?
So, as I described earlier, I was walking around raw, like just with no boundaries. I mean, and really truly, if you don't have them like in your life, like even if aside from spirituality, then you're going to have a hard time having them in the spiritual world as well. So, literally, that was where I had to go first. Like, I had to realize that it was okay to say no. It was okay to take time for myself to meditate. It was okay to go get myself a massage instead of giving someone one. It was okay for me to make space for myself to do the spiritual work. And that was I'm a mother of 4, and I am a mother, okay? I'm from Louisiana. We are mothers there. We mother our children big time. So it was a codependent relationship. And so when I started to say no to my children, they were like, "What? What?" They couldn't believe it. And also, I must say that I got really good at it. And there is definitely the possibility that you can do so good at putting up boundaries, you've put up walls. Which then I also did that in my spiritual practice, where I got so good, I felt uneffable. I don't know if I can cuss, but yes, I felt like no one could get into my bubble that I created. And really, they couldn't. And I started to notice this in my sessions that like I couldn't connect. I got so good at protecting myself. So then it became learning the balance of when I can be there for you and I can feel and sense and really truly be in my empathic natural soul that I was born to be, and yet not take your stuff, and then know, when I needed to protect myself, when I could let it down. That was so huge in my life. You can't just walk around totally open, and also you do know what it feels like to walk next to someone who has got that bubble around them, and you're like, you don't want to mess with that person, right? They're doing it unconsciously. I was definitely doing it consciously, but every single morning I had spiritual hygiene. I mean, we go into the bath, we shower, we wash our bodies, right? We put on clothes to protect our skin or to cover it up. We put on coats to keep us warm. You know, we put on our skin to protect it from the sun, all these things. But what do you do for your energy?
Mm.
Since we just got done saying you're almost complete energy. So what are you doing, you know, to cleanse yourself from all of the crap of the world, your family, right? Society, the school, everybody looking at you like, you know, you have to be present with that. So I mean, why not when you're in the shower, right? This is my whole thing. You're in the shower, you're cleansing your body, take a minute just to have a spiritual cleanse. Close your eyes, let all of the negativity fall off of you, let it come out your fingertips, your toes, right? And then maybe imagine that now you are just being refreshed with white light. And you know, when you get out, you're putting your clothes on, put some sort of protection around you too. It doesn't have to be a wall, right? You don't have to make it to where, you know, I loved how Mandy had once said, sometimes it's a fence, but it's like a picket fence where things can come in and out between the wood, right? And between the fence posts. But yet you are still protected. I love that one.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I've got a belt buckle on that's Nantucket scrimshaw. Nantucket's in the family for a long time. The necklace, and then a pouch
Yes.
of like cat's eye crystal, Tibetan quartz, and some other stuff. I only carry the pouch if I'm going somewhere or going on a drive or gotta go to the local supermarket or something. And I'm worried about something because I think also there are so many people who own that space of making a request and trusting that they're being looked after, whether it's
Mhm.
grounding, protection, and there's one more, just letting go of what they need to let go of. Yeah.
Yeah, I love gemstones. I love that you brought that up because truly, you know, why not use, you know, you could be an alchemist in what you wear every day. Love
Exactly.
that.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about Sophia. Let's go into the divine feminine. You've been working on a book that's I don't know how to describe it, historical, spiritual, a lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
But why don't you take us there and tell us a little bit about the project?
Well, you know, I'll be honest with you, like I love true crime. I mean, I try not to watch it too much because I realized what I was doing before was like just trying to find that dead space, and so I'd like fill it with something totally disturbing. What? So, I mean, yeah, love mysteries. And the more I opened myself up, and actually I did have to go through a period where I grieved my religion, that was really hard. And I think that a lot of people are going through that right now. And there's actually such thing as religious stress syndrome now. I
Hmm.
mean, that's actually coined like term because it's true, and I think that I have that. I think that I'm still experiencing that. Sometimes I get so mad and I go around like for 2000 years, you know, and I'm furious, but I actually don't know how I was led to it. Well, actually I do. It was all through synchronicities, always through synchronicities. I end up finding the Gnostic Gospels,
Hmm.
and I'm reading the Gnostic Gospels for the first time, and I actually don't think I even realized that like they were hidden at the time. Like, you know, they were hidden in the Nag Hammadi, probably around the time that the Bible was created, back in like when Constantine was, you know, creating the Catholic Bible, the first canon Bible. And they were found in like the 1940s, 1950s, somewhere around there, 1945 or something like that, in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. And I think it probably isn't until now, right, that people actually can read them. I mean, who would have went to the library seeking them? I mean, they definitely weren't talking about them on the news. So really,
Joseph,
it's the age of
Joseph
Aquarius.
Campbell, yeah, Joseph Campbell in The Power of Myth with Bill Moyers really highlighted it.
Yeah,
And it's the Gospel of Thomas. Okay.
my
I
favorite.
Yeah, so the whole concept, and it's not borrowing at all from Eckhart Tolle, but Eckhart Tolle refers to it, the whole heaven on earth. It's not waiting for something to happen. It's already here now. A second you just want to slow down a little, out of thinking, get to your heart is when you can take in, your awareness expands, your one with all will do a little Zen. And that's where heaven on earth is here now. And that was different as from the other three gospels, and the little publicized one. And I think what's called Gnostic. I mean, I'm way out of my league here for lingo, but the bottom line is it's beautifully said by Joseph Campbell, who has since passed, I think in the 80s. But what a great mythology person who can pull together all the different cultures of the world and make sense of it all. And you're doing the same thing on the Sophia front, the Gnostic gospel as well.
You know that Carl Jung actually had a Gnostic gospel as well in his possession until he died. And then I think it was the Apocrypha of John, actually, which is incredible. And, you know, there's a different Jesus in those books. I mean, he is a different Jesus, and I just freaking love him. I have a whole new love for Jesus. He was like a Buddha.
Yeah.
And he taught stories as an allegories. They were allegories. And they were like how people, you do it, Michael. You always teach through your stories. You tell your experiences and stories, and this is how people learn. And this is how he taught. And one of his stories was the Pistis Sophia. And so just it's actually the way that I received it is that basically she falls into the darkness. Okay, this is one story. There's lots of stories about Sophia, but the one that really I think can connect with everyone is that she falls into the darkness, and I see this as the womb. She doesn't remember who she is. She doesn't remember that she was the last aeon, which is like an angel that Source had made, that her father God had made, which she also had a mother God, by the way. She was called Sophia as well, because Sophia means wisdom. But this is the story of Pistis Sophia, faith wisdom that Jesus told. So she falls into the womb, doesn't remember who she is, doesn't remember that, you know, anything. She's baby, right? She's brand new, amnesia. So what happens is then Jesus is sent to find her in the dark, and he brings this light, and he helps her find her divine spark within. And they move up the ladder. If you want to see the tree of life, right? They move up, you know, many lives, you know, many evolutions until basically they unite together, and then they, you know, go back to the pleroma, which you could also say is like heaven. Yeah, I mean, it's just a story though of everyone, because who doesn't fall? It even shows that, you know, wisdom, the wisdom of God fell. And, you know, Jesus helped her find her light within.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the book from like pretend it's a whole literary agent, you know, gathering or publishing house. How do you sum it up in terms of the scope of the book? Where are you for kind of an expected finish polishing update? And do you even know yet? I mean, I know you know the title. We read the title earlier on the show. Do you have a projected finish date and polishing it up and all the rest? Where are you on the whole thing? You have been wrapping it up, haven't you?
Right. Yes. In fact, literally, so what happened is I started to make a mini series about my experiences with discovering Sophia. So literally, I take you on the journey with me, and I'm not at all suggesting this is the truth. I just kind of want whoever's reading it or listening, because it is a mini series on Sense of Soul Patreon, that they can make up their own mind, right? But this is just, you know, sharing my synchronicities and signs, and most of them are just freaking crazy. I mean, there's no way that any of this, I mean, it is so divine and so just, it's impossible, the things that I discovered. And so one thing that I just recently, right, discovered was that, and this really, and I'm going to share it with you, but this it's went full circle. So in my journey, I kept on running into scalar energy, which you talked about just a minute ago when you said we're mostly that space, right? In between every cell is this energy that Tesla, right, called radiant energy. He actually wanted to use it for free energy. And also he had the Tesla coils that put out, right, scalar energy. People, I love the Rasha by Dr. Jerry Rivera de Genio. I do the Rasha machine. He's that. It's just amazing. It's this healing, you know, divine energy. You could also compare it to like the solfeggio sounds of like the singing bowl, sound healing, right? So I'm I don't know why, that kept coming in on my Sophia journey. I mean, it had a little bit to do with the liar in King David, King Solomon wrote a lot about Sophia. So I did go down those roads. But all of a sudden, I'm reading about um, actually another form of Reiki called Kali Ki, which was designed by this lady named Raja Shrima, which is like a divine feminine Reiki. I mean, right up my alley, right? Well, in her, which a lot of people call Sophia and other goddesses the Dark Mother. The Dark Mother. This is what she's known as. Mary Magdalene's known as the Dark Mother, Kali Ma, Lilith, all of these old goddesses, they were hidden and named the Dark Mother. Well, every time I was reading Dark Mother in her book, I was seeing dark matter. Well, dark matter is scalar energy. And matter came from the word mother in Greek.
Interesting.
All of a sudden, the whole cosmology of Sophia, because there's a whole nother creation story with Sophia that's in the Gnostic Gospels. And it is in many Gnostic Gospels, a different creation story. And Sophia is a big part of it. And so it is said that she was actually the creator of the demiurge. So if that is the case, scalar energy, if it didn't exist in between your cells, you'd be invisible. So the dark matter might be the Dark Mother.
I remember meeting somebody in Austin 10 years ago who was talking about the Gnostic Gospels, but was a healer herself. And I just remember going to the most fantastic studio, more out in the country, just outside of Austin by Lake Travis. And I remember seeing balls of light. And I remember her talking about ancient Egypt as well. But there was an architect for the pyramids. I'm blanking on his name, maybe started with the letter A. But I remember seeing balls of light in her studio. It's daytime. When I'm talking about balls of light, I'm talking very comfortable, pinpoint white, soft, gentle, but energetic, and you feel safe. There's none of this out of a TV show. You run for the hills, lock the car doors, peek behind the curtains, whatever. This is very safe, but it was just the other side, the veil being pulled back, the universe coming in. And so when it just got me to pay attention to when she was speaking. Now, again, you've heard my entire ability to talk that direction here on this show. So I do appreciate you touching on all this because there's something definitely to it. And again, Joseph Campbell gave it a lot of respect. You mentioned, I think it was Jung, not Freud, right? Jung.
Yeah, I was young.
Same thing. So it's definitely been kind of permeating for a long time. And all you have to do is kind of scratch the surface a little and you'll see it more.
I mean, the journey of me just being able to accept that there was even some sort of goddess, right? Like a feminine energy was just so foreign to my brain. I really had to retrain myself. It didn't come very easily, which is probably why they have done a really good job to hide her, but I mean, it is a hard concept to believe.
Yeah, and I mean that I'm shocked to see there's gambling going on in the casino when it comes to humans and narratives and how it's all supposed to work. But the good news is, the way I always put it is you can have any answer at any point for your life specifics. Just let go, get yourself to a listening place, ask, receive. And that applies to hugs. Hugs can become healing. And how about I blow you a little bit of sage? We can do some figures who can suggest some topics too that we could cover. But sage, we did it before the show. I do it on every show. My microphone's right here. So if you see me looking that way, I'm just going to light some American sage. Again, if anyone's watched the show, I got it. I can do it. If anybody's watched the show, I've done this a lot before. I've done this on other shows and not burned my fingers. And
you gotta find your divine spark.
I know, I gotta find my divine spark. I'm doing it. Okay. Without burning or turning my thumb into a shish kebab. Okay, a little bit of smoke. Sage, I'm blowing it from Texas to Colorado. And the audience, even if it's 3 years in the future, checking out Shanna Vavra, Sense of Soul host, almost 1 million downloads, 350 episodes. Absolutely find her Patreon account. Do that for extra content and for supporting her. But she's had fantastic guests on. Look for a book about Sophia coming out from her in the future. She's a Reiki master, but teacher as well. And we've been talking a lot of things, or all things spiritual just now. Okay, a little bit of sage. Are you already catching it?
I got it.
Okay, what do you describe it as for the person who's still like at home trying to figure it out? And how would you suggest just dropping to their heart and allowing the sage smoke, the energy to come to them, since there's really no time and space the way we think there is?
No, there's no distance between anybody with energy. Energy has no distance. In fact, I mean, just as much as they are watching us, right, is nothing different. Yeah.
Exactly. Now I'm going to put it out so I don't get too much sage smoke in the studio here. Okay. Set that over there. And a red-tailed hawk feather. If you'll remind me, let's do the red-tailed hawk spirit guide. What do we say? Spirit animal. It's actually we'll just say the collective spirit of the red-tailed hawk, or the red-tailed hawk spirit, whatever is the easier way for a person simply to get out of their thinking, their structure, and allow for this. But I have a beautiful drawing to put up.
That spirit hawk that I sent you was a red tail.
Yeah, and was it a video or a photo?
Video.
Photo of the video. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. We've had some interactions before, obviously, so we're referring to stuff that people wouldn't have seen on the show. Okay, here's an angel named Joy. Just get a quick hello. Ask, hey, what do you need to know for the show? There's something else to cover. It could be just a reminder to all of us, or it could be an actual topic, and I'll pull back. But get a hug while you can. And I'd encourage anybody out there who's watching to put their hand out. You can feel energy on your fingers, your palm. But some people who try too hard focusing on this, get it on their toes or on their back. So the big thing is to really laugh and let go of the try. Or as Archangel Gabriel says, always try, but Yoda, no try. So it's not about the words and whether you're trying or not trying. It's what she talked about just a few discussions back about pulling yourself out of trying to win with the walls, building walls. You can do too good of a job. So it's not about winning or losing here, or gaining or losing anything. You already have everything here. Move past seeing the negative is what angels once said. And I love that as an expression. So back to Joy. Did you get a topic for us all?
I did. And, I think it's really important to, whether it was my Sophia journey, my ancestry journey, all of this, the Reiki, everything. One thing we're not taught, or I wasn't, and I hope that our next generations are, is to really learn to use and trust that inner compass, right? Your discernment. It's so important. Like, if it doesn't feel right in your body, then it's not supposed to be. I mean, your body will tell you. I mean, I do a discernment exercise with people, and it's shocking, to actually feel that yes or no in your body. It literally tells you. Your body is a truth detector. You need to get to trusting that part of you.
So what's your advice for a person how can they pay attention 5 minutes more a day? How about that? How can they just unplug a little to slow down and get to here, so they can just begin allowing for a little more interaction with the universe and what's really going on energetically?
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, I was just diagnosed with ADHD. There was no way that being mindful was a possibility. But really, it is just simple. You don't have to do like a meditation. You don't have to have a whole, space, which is nice to have a space to go to, but you can just go outside. I mean, sometimes it's literally in my car, or it's in the backyard as my dogs are going to the bathroom, just feeling the air on your skin, right? Using all of your senses. Everyone, maybe even go through all 5 senses. And what do you smell? What do you feel? What do you see? Even close your eyes. What do you see behind your eyes? What do you taste even? Morning coffee. I mean, go through all of your senses and just be. And by the time you're done going through all your senses, like, you've just won. Just did it.
So by putting your focus on a tree, even touching the tree branches, what can you feel? If you turned it into an art class, what can you notice about the light, the shade, the colors, the touch,
anything.
the feel, the sense. But if you're really good, because there's going to be a lot of advanced folks watching the show, they can reach out to the tree and connect energetically at a distance. You can just sit on the grass, sit on the steps, sit on the porch, sit in the chair and connect. And I will add, from experience, you can get the name of the tree. Not every tree is going to want to talk to you, but a lot of trees will. And again, you can get advice. It's very wise, very broader perspective than I think we've got as humans.
Yeah, I'll share one with you if you want.
Please.
I was sitting outside of my house and I was letting my car like warm up. I'm in Colorado, so it was the winter. And there was a lot of cars getting stolen in the neighborhood on next door. So I was like, well, I'm going to sit out here. And it's the law. You're not supposed to let it sit there. So I'm outside sitting on the porch and I look up and I see there's a new moon. It's just a very small slither. And it was like 7 in the morning. And I'm like, ugh, the new moon. I always have bad days on the new moon. I want the full moon. I love the full moon. And I just kind of was looking at it like, what are you? Like, what are you even good for? And all of a sudden, she spoke to me. And she's like, you can't always see your breath, right? But it's cold outside. I could see my breath, but it's always there. And she was like, I'm full. You may not be able to see all of me. This is just from your perspective, but I am whole. And so are you. It was just amazing. Yeah.
Okay, another angel for you. This one's Charlotte.
Okay.
And go ahead and get a hug. And if you want to describe the energy through 2 screens or just all around you.
Charlotte, I have an aunt Charlotte, we call her Charlotte. And Charlotte. But every time I see the word in this, I get the same vibes. And she was a teacher.
And then a topic or a reminder for us all.
I say just, learn to trust the journey, trust the synchronicities, trusting yourself is so far more important than you trying to live up to all the conditions of the world. Be who you want to be. Yeah. Hey, Michael, I wanted to share one other thing. I had a message from one of my aunts, and she had listened to our episode, and she loved it. She sent me a long email about it. So.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. I never know quite what to say on those because I don't even remember half of what I'll say. I'm usually channeling a little, and hopefully it's very light, kind, and just, how about gentle as well? Speaking of which, I have a very light, pun intended, with a capital L, kind and super gentle angel next, who's light waves of energy and water. So if you don't mind a bit of a Hawaiian ocean smell, it's my guardian angel one way, but she's a white ball of light, and on like the website and elsewhere and on the book cover with Charlotte, metallic balls of light. So this isn't about any one way for photographs. I got lucky at the beginning of all this. I still was running around like a deer within 100 million headlights, now 99.9 million headlights. I don't know much, but here's Min, just call her like Min, like Minnesota, Lakota Sioux word for water. Actual guardian angel. I mean, there's a million guardian angels, but here's Min, and she's a professorial, very gentle, but catch Hawaii around you, and in a Reiki sort of way for your benefit, let that air lift your vibration up even higher, since there's no limit to your expansion or growth, and the same for the audience. But go ahead and get another topic, another reminder you can talk to us about.
I got that really quickly.
Good.
Early on in my Reiki journey, I had my spirit guide. And actually since then, I would say maybe he may have even been in my past lives, but he was a monk and a Franciscan monk, and I didn't know anything about them, but I did know that he did not speak to me. He was like mute. I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I finally get a spirit guide? And he is mute. So for the longest time, I just didn't understand it, but he was always there in meditations and all my attunements. My mama actually in a dream told me his name was David, so that's why I start calling him. But I did a past life regression actually in between lives, and he was there. And she said, why don't you speak to, Shanna? And he said, Well, I do in her writing.
Mm,
And
nice.
I was like, what? Yeah.
Okay, so I've got one. I'm going to put two angels up you already just met, Joy and Charlotte, but just ask them what you need to know about the red-tailed hawk spirit while I find my mom's drawing. It's it's hanging on the wall, literally in the entrance to the house here. And I don't usually ever put this up, so I'm excited to share that with you. But just here privately, or something you can share about red-tailed hawk spirit for all of us, maybe something for the audience so they can feel more comfortable about, I would imagine for the red-tailed hawk, the perspective is broader with the vision and very action oriented when the time comes. Got it?
Got it.
Okay, and then let me just pull up, should take a second. I had Audrey Hepburn teed up for you, but we'll come right back to her. One red-tailed hawk, here we go.
I love Audrey.
Yeah, and I think this is funny. My mom was an artist, so this is in like the 60s. She passed away when I turned 23. My dad passed in 1970, but they went to Syracuse together. She was an art student, and she drew this without having lived in the Southwest. And there's a cactus in this. So here's red-tailed hawk. And go ahead and hear from that spirit guide or animal and get a beautiful message that you can share. This is one where we'll all go out on a limb, like the red-tailed hawk perched on a branch.
Yeah, I love big birds. My kids make fun of me. Even this morning, I took video of the hawks. I love them so much. And there was this one yesterday. I mean, it was ginormous. I took a picture of it on top of someone's house. It was like the size of their windows. And, here's the thing about the big birds. I mean, they could see for miles and miles and miles. But if they're not willing to shift, then they're not going to see the whole picture. So be willing to see from all angles, from all different perspectives. As a seeker, which I think we all are, be willing to kind of go out of your comfort zone and just, be curious, and you'll be surprised what you find.
We had a lot of rain here, and it's very rare that when I see a red-tailed hawk, it's usually circling, flying around low, looking, searching, scanning, and instead it was two houses over, up on those metal spinning devices, I think to get the exhaust out or something. But it was up there, and it felt to me like it was just hanging out and happy to be getting dried by the wind. We again had so much rain, but it had just cleared up, and so I've never seen a red-tailed hawk sort of taking a break and hanging out up there. But he was so big that at first glance, I'm like, oh, it's a caracara, a Mexican eagle. But then I noticed it didn't have the orange beak. I got the binoculars out, and I'm like, oh my God. And my neighbor and I were just enjoying it. So he was just hanging out. That was a lot of fun. Anytime a caracara, I didn't even know caracaras existed until we moved from Austin to San Antonio. I'm a runner for 40 years, and I'm running, and I look up and I see a kind of a cross type or a 90-degree angle with the wings, very straight, and the white stripes on the wing. Giant bird flew over. I think it was twice on the last few days in Austin. I didn't know it was sort of setting me up for seeing them all the time in San Antonio. But caracara, a Mexican eagle, was not in my vocabulary. Hummingbird, sure. Texas, tons of hummingbirds, love them. Got a ton, 10 or 12 that feed, all day long. But caracaras are gorgeous. But I try to pay attention when a red-tailed hawk shows up, a caracara, sometimes like a falcon or something. It's usually a moment to just be like, whoa, what just happened? Or what am I supposed to be listening to?
Dude, I swear I embarrass the crap out of my kids. I even learned to like call them. I'll like do their whistle in the wind. And sometimes they'll come back, and then I like run in the house because I'm scared to death they're gonna try to get me.
And I'm asking for their feathers. So I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
send me
Oh,
a
I
feather
got them.
sometime when it's ready. Okay, Dull Knife, Unconditional Love, Spirit Guide, Native
Oh yeah.
American Chief. He's wisdom with some humor. And just have him deliver something that you can share with us if that's appropriate, or keep it to yourself. It's your choice, but make sure you get a hug. And anybody out there who's watching Shanna do some listening right now, you can ask for a sacred smell, and Shanna can do this as well. 1 of 40. Pine, sweetgrass, sage, desert piñol, cedar, juniper, Douglas fir. You get the idea. Tobacco, a little polite taste of medicinal tobacco smoke on the air around you, just for a few seconds. You won't have to dry clean your clothes. Ask for mini miracles, because then you can ask for miracles later. All right, Shanna, you all set?
I'm all set.
What'd you get?
You know, when I first saw him, which I've seen him before, but wisdom mean is the word Sophia, in Greek. And so back again, and then, Sophia, I imagine her as, actually, I don't really imagine her as actually of anything. I just a very feminine energy, which he is not. But in that moment that I said this to myself, I was reminded, there's no light without dark. There is no mother without father. That is creation, right? That is that unity. We all are one. We all are made of the same stuff. We're all a collective consciousness, truly. And gender falls in that as well.
Love it. Okay, red shirt is the gentlest mom in the world, to go kind of back to that theme. Native American chief, red shirt, Lakota Sioux, compassion, 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 wearing a U.S. presidential medal. Day after this photo was taken, he and Geronimo were at the White House. Maybe Teddy Roosevelt, parade horseback out on Pennsylvania Ave. Meanwhile, he's just so soft-spoken with a big eagle feather, I believe. But he's so soft-spoken that anyone going through difficulties in life usually gravitates to him. And just here's something again that you could be able to share with all of us, or it's private to you, your choice, his choice.
Got it. This is a powerful message, and this is something that's been coming up a lot for me. It's like we do the work within ourselves, right? And however you do it and it's working for you, amazing. The world needs that same healing, right? Because you know what, some of these pictures for me are a little triggering. They create emotion in me. My voice starts to quiver, especially that one. Um, because when we think about some of the habits that we're trying to break and things maybe that were new neural pathways that we're trying to create, we need to do that also in our lives when we look at traditions, right? I have a hard time celebrating Thanksgiving consciously, right? And maybe make it more of your own. Maybe we change some of those traditions to be more authentic to today and how we're celebrating them, if you celebrate them. I feel like that's what we're doing for ourselves, right? We're going to change the way we do things for the better, for the greater good of ourselves. What things in our lives like cannot expand outside of us into our family, into our traditions, into our culture, our community, and then, hopefully spread. If everyone's doing their part and taking responsibility, maybe it'll make a difference in the world.
Cool. Older Geronimo for you. And I was trying to
Oh boy.
pop this up. Okay, so there's younger, and you can get a quick mantra or a few words of just remembrance for being in your heart, action, something else. Get a few words, because this is the tougher, younger Geronimo. And he's more slang, not proper like the other two. So not formal, not yes, no. He's more like, yeah, nah, duh. You already know the answer. Just do it. But got that one okay?
Yeah.
I mean, he comes through like that. So what'd you
You
get
know what?
for younger Geronimo?
Geronimo is funny to me. I know that he's supposed to be the serious dude, but he's like one of those popoys that are like tough and mean, and then all of us, but he has like that really soft, funny side if you can really, get in tight with him. I feel
Oh,
like that.
yeah, no, he leaves me laughing because I'll be pouring a little coffee in a demi-tasse, and he'll say, fill her up, bub.
Oh my
1950s
gosh.
lingo,
Right.
like gas stations. Nobody talks that way anymore. And there's only like New Jersey where you have to have someone else has to legally pump your gas. You're not allowed to touch the
Yeah.
handle of the. So, I mean, we don't even have pumping your gas through an attendant anymore where you
Yeah.
yell, fill her up, bub, and go in, buy your cigarettes. Okay, here's older Geronimo. And
Mm.
again, he's wily. There's people who get scared before they meet him. They're like, I'm not sure, trepidation. And we're talking a lot of angels and Mary, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, a lot of big names. And he steals the show. He ends up being so fun. But here's older, more shamanic healer, more chill. Go ahead and get something super special and fun. It might be private to you, but either way. But
Wow. I
cat,
mean, his
yeah.
eyes, his eyes are just all soul, right? His eyes take over that whole picture, like his soul right there. Amazing.
And if you want, close your eyes, have all three chiefs, the hawk and I can never pronounce the name, Pigaroche, Etienne, Pigaroche, have all of them come in and get given a mini vision. I don't want to put too much pressure since we're live on or taping on a show, but go ahead and close your eyes. Yep, breathe through your mouth a little extra, just an extra of openness itself. That's all this is for folks out there who are watching, is you're just opening openness. I think that's a Buddhist expression, Chogyam Trungpa, but the point of this is now is the only moment that truly exists. It's what your heart kind of correlates to, and it's the opening, the doorless door, the gateless gate to all. If you're talking swinging the golf club and hitting a hole in one, that's when you are in the now in your heart. If it's giving a hug, getting a hug, it's in the now, not tomorrow, not next week, not a lot of talk. Usually talk is more egoic stuff.
It's more like a powwow.
Yeah. Did you have a little moment?
Had a little powwow, a little mini powwow.
Good. Okay, last but not least, Archangel Michael for you.
Oh.
Get what you can get, enjoy what you can enjoy, and share what you can share. But for you, notice the stripes in the photo of energy and feel that vibe. Also the perimeter, and let some of the edging, I think it's, I don't know what to call it, a glow, an aura, the blue. I mean, I'm seeing a little bit of pink in there as well for the first time in my life. Let that speak to you extra.
You know, there was this meditation I did right after my dad died. And it was one of the first times I ever like cried in a meditation. But I was on this bench, like wrapped up in Archangel Michael's arms, just crying. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about, I'm going to switch us, we'll go a different vibe now, a different direction. Tell us about Sense of Soul and who have been some of your, if somebody's going to go in and they've got 350 episodes to look at, can you steer them to just 2 or 3 episodes that stand out? You're like, yes, this was one where, you know, even the microphone had to be replaced after the taping.
Wow. Gosh. That's so hard because I mean, really, truly, I mean, my guests have not only become, I mean, I'm like a student, you know, like 3 times a week I'm interviewing people. It's just amazing. Yes, 3 times a week. And I put out 2 episodes a week. I've had some people who I just absolutely, you know, just, it was so powerful to be in their presence. Like JJ Hertalk and his wife. He is the author of Keys of Enoch. He also did a translation of Pistis Sophia. I mean, he's a genius. So is she. They both are. And full of wisdom and power. I don't even know if they're human. I'll be honest with you. I got off of that call. It just was speechless for a long time. I mean, Eben Alexander was amazing. I really enjoy so much my conversations with Paul Wallace. I'm not sure if you're familiar. He wrote a ton of series. He used to be a archdeacon, and now he is on Gaia talking about, you know, the aliens and the angels maybe being the same thing, which is something that I believe as well. And I mean, we just geek out. I love anybody that I could literally geek out with. Actually, I've been geeking out with this Jewish mystic. Yeah, there's JJ Hertalk. But yeah, this Jewish teacher. He teaches and wrote a book on the Kabbalah. I've been just totally having fun talking to him. I had him on like once a night. I'm having him on again just because I enjoy it so much. I just like people who are seeking the mystery like me and want to get into it, you know, and share their experiences of how they got there. I'd love to hear their stories. And then also just seriously like uncovering this hidden wisdom that, you know, I think there's been an agenda to keep it from us, to keep us small. So, and putting it out there, you know, and letting other people, you know, go into their own little investigations and mysteries and discovering their divine spark within. Or also, like in the book of Thomas says, you know, the kingdom is inside of you and is also outside of you. And so find your kingdom, your spark, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, I love it. And you mentioned Dr. Alexander. his
Yeah.
wife or partner
Mhm.
is Karen Newell. So she was kind
Oh,
enough to do the service, provide a testimonial, stuff like that. She was very supportive. I was very thankful for that. So she's wonderful. Those two have been around, doing the circuit for a while. And I
yeah.
think they've got more books out since his original big hit one. Um, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that what is it called? The Heaven something. I don't know. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I
I've
can see the
heard that.
cover. I think it was a blue
Yes.
butterfly, and I'm blanking on it. Yeah.
I've
Uh,
had so many amazing people on, like Michael, Andrew Ford, and
and you're a good judge of character, just to put it on the record here.
yeah.
Exactly. Well, look,
Thanks.
Shauna, is there anything else you want to add? What's coming up? What can we look forward to? Is there a guest in the future? Or is
Yeah.
there, let's do it this way. Let's do one final kind of question that's structural here. What author has been around for a while that you still go back to that would be on your shelf, that you maybe reference every 15th show because you can't help it? Who are you a huge fan of that, hopefully they're not passed over? We
Yeah,
don't have to
right.
channel them then. But what
No.
should people be checking out? Movie, a book? It could be Four Agreements, but what is your absolute go-to fallback failsafe?
You know, I really love Daniel Morse book. It's called um, The Divine Spark Within.
Hmm.
He actually does a very good job, a very, very good job on explaining the Gnostic Sophia. I mean, he was amazing. In fact, my episode with him was one of my favorites. I definitely should have said that. But I would also say Colin Holland.
Hmm.
Colin Holland was actually the original editor or something like that of The Alchemist, of Paulo Coelho's Alchemist. And then he wrote a book a few years ago about The Alchemist. And so I love him. He's over in the UK, but he wrote, well, he didn't write the book, but he came out with a book right around Christmas time. Gosh, I can't remember what it's called. It's like something about Jesus. I don't know. You'll have to go and look for Colin Holland under my podcast. What is the name of the book? I just see this is what happens as you inch towards 50. But this book was actually written like a decade ago. But the guy who wrote it self-published it and it went nowhere.
Hmm.
Since then, the guy has died. And Colin Holland kind of edited it and brought it back to life and put it out there. And they have some amazing information in there that I also align very much with about Jesus. And really, the overall in that book was something that I overall discovered too. Um, that, Jesus also is no matter, just like Sophia, like the Sophia is the divine feminine. Jesus would be the divine masculine. You're going to find him everywhere.
Well, you just reminded me of. I mean, I'm lying that we're wrapping up just yet because you're going to get Jesus's painting. I think it's the Latvian from Heaven is for Real, very classic drawing of him. So I'll put that up on the screen next. You might get Abe as well, the Abraham of old. But I also wanted to mention that this entire conversation, for what an audience member out there could do as a takeaway, is that whether it's The Alchemist, The Parable, very short story, but a beautiful one. Nothing's going to be found externally in one sense. That doesn't mean you're not going to travel, take seminars, go take the classes, read the books,
Mm-hmm.
watch Sense of Soul, her podcast. Absolutely. But you're basically waking up to the concept that there's a treasure map and you get to
Mm-hmm.
follow these steps, whether you're more guided or you're more aggressive. You get to trust more, allow more, let the universe do its job, whichever way you want to describe the universe and the energies. But in the end, the X on the map is here, and you get to discover that you're the treasure and a unique life path to live. And then what she had said, Shauna had said at the beginning of this, which is what her dad's note had said, which is to
Mm-hmm.
follow a pursuit that you love and watch how you blossom. And everyone around you gets touched by that pursuit. That's pretty incredible. Everybody gets to glow with your flow. Okay, here's Jesus.
Oh, there's
Yeah,
Joshua.
yeah. So why don't you get 3 hugs, but sandbag the first 2 and make the third big, not too big, and then allow him to pass on a last bit of advice for us all,
Mm-hmm.
and we can wrap it up then. Good.
Yeah, I just remember the name of the book too. It's like The True Origins of Jesus, I think it was. Something that I've thought a lot about over all of this is I look out into the world and I see people judging each other and they're, not kind to each other. They are, pointing the fingers at one another. And a lot of times, it's because my way is the right way to live, my way, my religion's the right way, my color's the right way, my gender, whatever. And all of these differences, when truly there's like very little, right? When we talked about the physicalness of us, that's like, otherwise we are all just energy. There is no difference there. And I think about what Jesus was trying to teach, like how clear, how not more clear could he have been. He even died for it when he said, literally, we all should be loving each other, kind to each other, do as I do. We didn't do that. Did we fail? And then I think about, it's not that we failed to not believe in him for some, because some say that is, what you have to do, which I don't believe. I mean, I believe that what we failed to do is be like him, be more like him. We
Yeah,
need to be
love
more
more,
like him.
allow more, which is a real challenge. I mean, you could go a whole decade and get caught up in stuff and forget that it's actually really simple if you're here. Perspective changes, that whole Wayne Dyer quote, everything changes if you simply just change the way you're looking at stuff.
Yes, right. Be that owl or that red hawk or the eagle on the top of the roof, seeing from all perspectives, trusting in yourself to guide you from that roof.
I love it. And I got to do a Ted Lasso only because I sat up. I'm watching the third season. I think it's episode 6. They hit Amsterdam. This is that
Oh,
football on Apple Plus TV show comedy. Beautiful. A lot of consciousness in it. It's not zombies, murder mysteries, mayhem, violence, blood.
yeah.
It's the opposite. But there's a houseboat scene in which the owner of the football team, who's English, great singer, has been dumped into the canal in Amsterdam by mistake and is
Mm,
fished out of the water. She's having dinner with this gentleman on a houseboat. And he's explaining how the divorce that happened to him wasn't a mistake. It was, events don't happen to us, he says. They happen for us.
mm,
And when he said that, I sat up and I don't remember much. So it was days later. I'm like, I got to go back and watch and find out exactly the words. Now I memorized.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I want to end with that at my end and just remind folks that whatever you're going through, if you can slow up enough and use some of what Shanna had reminded us about in the show here, let the universe sort it out for you and ask or pay attention a little more. What am I being shown? How is this my opportunity for growth? Good luck with that, because all of us resist it all the time. You get laid off from IBM after a 30-year job. None of us say, oh my God, greatest thing that ever happened. I'm so lucky to be without a job. I just got laid off, the pain.
Mm.
And none of us call our friends, our mom, anybody and say, hey, I just got laid off. What an opportunity for growth. We don't do it. Divorce, health crisis. I've got cancer. I just got the news 5 minutes ago. And
Right.
yet, a lot of us can look back 10 years later and say it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It opened me up, or this happened, or I started a new business, or I finally went on my world trip that I've been talking about for 25 years, or doing what your dad's note said, which is follow your passion, follow your heart, live your life more. And so I want to leave everyone with that. We've had a fantastic guest. I want to thank Shanna for being on. And this has been another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. And this was Shanna Vavra, host of Sense of Soul podcast. And I'm going to mention her website on air. It's mysenseofsoul.com. And you can find everything there. Plus,
Yep.
she's got the whole Patreon account thing. So make sure you sign up and support her there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Can't wait to have you back on. And thank you again, Shanna, for being a guest on the show.
All right. Peace and love. See you.
Cheers.